Next up, we have another panel discussion about how NFTs will revolutionize creator DAOs. So that's something that hits close to home for me. We've got Joel Alexander, Javier Mateache, Janine, Subgang, and Andrew Macey. Sorry about the pronunciations if they were wrong.
Wonderful. This works. Great. I think I found my new favorite people to debate with on Twitter just at the panel beforehand. Very much my topic. And I hope we can tie those two things together nicely, because there's obviously some real-world application to NFTs, and as they said, also verifying contributions. But to start, I want to kick it off with who we are and what we do. So I'm Janine. I run FriDAO in London, which is actually a physical space, but also DAO. So combining decentralization and centralization.
Hi, my name is Javier. I'm the co-founder of a Web3 agency in Spain that's helping Web2 companies get into the space, basically, and I'm also a governor at the Gallery DAO, which aims to create immersive experiences throughout different Web3 conferences, and we try to leverage Web3 technology with creative people, especially who are unrepresented both in the space and in the world, in order to bring them to this new creator economy.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrew and I'm the HR director at Cool Cats. HR is interested in Web3, slightly different on especially in a DAO, but my job is predominantly making sure Cool Cats has the best talent and retains the best talent.
Hi everyone, my name is Joel Alexander. I'm the co-founder and CEO of CrowdPad. We're effectively building Web3 Patreon. We're the world's first mobile social token app built on top of Solana. And yeah, I mean, I was going to go into the Crunchbase stuff, but like I'll stay away from that for now.
Oh yeah, I want to tie right into the end of the other panel where we talked about how do we incentivize people and how do we make sure that when we are down, when we scale up, that everybody has a reason to contribute. How do we verify who has contributed what? And I know you had a topic.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that NFTs are the perfect tool for that. Us, for example, we do activations in many different cities throughout the world. We have people worldwide participating in all the projects as well. And what best way to track your community than through the NFTs that have been created in the different activations that we've done. So it's a way to track everything, everyone who has participated, in order to reward them in the future when we have future events and make them feel like they're part of something greater.
I think that NFTs and DAOs really cross-link, actually. I think that DAOs can really help kind of creators and NFTs evolve. And you know, they're very much interlinked. So I think a lot of NFTs, you know, start as these amazing projects, but become these DAOs over time. And DAOs allow the community to help revolutionize and change kind of NFTs for what they are and the better.
So hot take is that basically NFTs are, you know, something in the ballpark of like, to an average person, let's take it from people that are not at NFT.London, the people that are outside, the 59 million other people plus outside. To them, these are fractional images that you could potentially earn for contributing to a DAO or an entity or whatever you want to call it. I am on the other side of the spectrum where I'm basically saying to really operationalize the social capital that you build up within these DAOs, you need to be able to host tokenized communities in a place and like effectively reward people in a very simple manner. And what I mean by that is people recognize coins as currency. It's not fractional images that they can exchange for a cup of coffee at Starbucks. It's social tokens. So that's kind of like where I came at this particular topic from, but generally speaking, we've seen you know, sort of DAOs form around movements, around causes, and it's been phenomenal to watch. Constitution DAO raising in the ballpark of $42 million in like 24 hours. But what we see over there was like, you know, people wanted to have some degree of ownership over something that they could only aspire to previously. In the context of creators, I believe it's very much the same. You see a Justin Bieber or someone like that starting out his career on the streets of Canada, busking away, and you're like, how can I help this kid become the next big thing, as opposed to drop $1 in his like charity box, right? So that's kind of where creator DAOs, I believe, will really revolutionize the way that people earn, spend, and like, you know, basically build wealth and money in the future. Yeah.
So tying in with that, how to use NFT as a way to recognize and also reward the right people, there's something interesting going on with Betterverse, which is a way to donate to charity where you can not only control where you're going. I'm not associated with them, I just like that project, by the way. Shameless chill. But there, you also grow kind of in the metaverse, like your dolphin, your tree, or whatever, depending on how much you contribute, which I find an incredibly interesting concept to integrate in any DAO, especially creator DAOs, because you can use whatever form you decide of NFT to showcase how much you have been contributed, and nearly as like a social reward. So from a psychology perspective, you can even like value signal to other people how much you've contributed and motivate them in that regard.
Yeah, I think it's like the whole double incentivization piece, right? For the longest time, it's basically been like a one-way stream where you're giving money to the creator, and you've never really had an incentive to be like, let's grow together. What you're doing by effectively, having this creator DAO is we both have skin in the game, and we're gonna blow this shit up. Like that's what's happening, right? So I think I definitely agree that virtual experiences and things like that are part of the social rewards and like perks that you can offer as a creator, as part of your community. Different tiers offering things, everything from like virtual experiences through to like discount codes, through to early access to collections and things like that. The real utilities of like DAOs and NFTs broadly. And like being able to really help creators maximize the willingness to pay of a consumer, because today it's like completely free. Like people are so used to consuming content like for like $0 that when Instagram is now like released like subscriptions and things like that, people are like, shit, I have to pay like $20 for someone's content. People going crazy over like $8 on like Elon's like Twitter subscription plan even, like because we're not used to paying for things. That's the reality of it. And I think that there are people here in our audience right now that would be willing to pay $0.01 for a creator's like content just to even be able to view it, comment, like, subscribe, whatever it is. And there's people that are willing to pay $1 million to fly someone out to another country on their jet and like have dinner with them or do a private concert for their wedding or some shit like that. So extracting that full willingness to pay of a creator's content and things like that is what creator DAOs, I believe, and NFT, social tokens, things like that will enable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that these models, at the end of the day, they allow us to interact with the user and the producer of the good directly. This is what Web3 is about. It's about having this interaction directly between the brand, the people participating in the brand, and the consumers. So you don't have to do market studies because the community is telling you what they would be willing to pay for a project, and they are paying for it, and then you can split it back with the community for helping you in order to do that. So I think that this is why this tool is so revolutionary.
And I think to echo that point, actually, I think it's really important that some NFT artists can just get forgotten behind the NFT. And I think the creator DAOs give that empowerment back to the individual artist to really showcase their work, and people recognize the name rather than just the image. I think that's really important. And we see that within Cool Cats. There's a team of illustrators that do our NFTs, but we're one brand, but those individual illustrators aren't really recognized. People recognize Cool Cats. And so I think creator DAOs give that amazing opportunity for individuals to showcase their work.
I do think we will need a bit of a paradigm share for this because, as you said, we're not used to paying by things. We pay with our data. We pay through the conglomerates of our individual behavior data. At the moment on social platforms, on audio streams, we might pay to not get advertisement if we get Spotify Premium, but we're not used to directly pay and then contribute to an artist. So that, I think, is something where it's a bit of a culture clash. Like either Web3 wins in a perspective of we get the Web2 people as well to have this culture shift and to be more engaged with their artist, with their creator, and willing to pay to get access there, or we need to find some way in Web3 to make this paying without paying system, the seamless paying where you pay through data to something that you don't really value as an individual. We need to make that somehow a thing in Web3. It's going to be either or of those. I'm not sure where I stand on the side of them.
Interesting. I think this is something that we spoke about earlier as well, like the paying with your data piece, and like just in general, we were like debating the whole Twitter blue like $8 thing, like should it be a thing, should it not? Different topic, but like I would say just coming back to the creator DAO piece, let's look at the ultimate sort of like heights of what you can reach as a creator, right? Kim Kardashian launching her own fund. Mr. Beast raising $150 million at a $1.5 billion valuation. What do these things tell you about creators is that they are brands that are so big that they could literally be multi-billion-dollar entities, right? And I think so far it's like VC-backed, like big institutional LP money, like that's kind of where everything's coming from, great. But the future of that is community-driven. Like the whole crowdfunding piece is not foreign to anybody. We've all like happened to contribute to a friend's Kickstarter once in a while, like, you know. And I think that the evolution of that is basically, you know, how you would invest in a creator's like sort of brand, seeing that through from 0 to 1. And I think creator DAOs help you to not only put that money in, but effectively contribute to making sure that the progress of that is significant enough that it's worth your time to keep your money in that creator DAO. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, during this era of the internet, I think that we've gotten used to not paying for anything, you know, like all the content was free and basically your end goal was to get as many users as you could in order to monetize your website or your project or whatever. And I think that this new Web3 world, it offers quality over quantity, you know. I want a project that I feel identified with, that I don't get ads that I don't want to see, that I'm not interacting with people that I shouldn't be interacting with, and also I don't know where my data is going. You're telling me that you're selling it to different governments or whatever. It's something that I think that when people get that mindset change, we will realize that it will be worth it to pay a certain amount of money in order to get the product that you want. At the end, nothing is free.
Are you at all afraid of like a 2080 distribution? Because that's where when I'm looking at this, I think we have great potential with Web3, but similarly to Facebook and Instagram, nobody consciously set out to do any harm, but there were a lot of unaccounted side effects for. And with Web3, I'm seeing a bit of the similar, where some creators will be very, very successful and able to capitalize a lot on this, and some creator DAOs will be able to be incredibly successful, but everybody else will kind of like fall off the rail and go into the void of the big web.
I think that's super interesting, right? I genuinely believe that we are empowering the middle tail to sort of come up even more and helping them to monetize from day one. Does not mean that there's not going to be a longer tail. Does not mean that people are still not going to make money. Like, you have to be good at what you do, otherwise you're not going to make money. Like, that's just the reality, right? So life is, you know, nothing is free, life is unfair, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that in general, the whole like decentralization piece on like, you know, what should be allowed as content within communities and things like that, something we've been thinking very, very deeply about, because there is the two ends to the spectrum, right? One where a central entity is controlling content moderating and stuff like that, and then the other end is basically like, oh, everything is completely decentralized, all stored on Arweave, like a decentralized storage solution, and like, you know, each piece of data is like owned by a person. Everything from a tweet to a post to a photo, whatever, is like owned on these kind of things. But I think it's somewhere where I call it like, you know, sufficient decentralization and a path to that sufficient decentralization, because the reality is that, you know, there are a few things that we like optimize for. It's like decentralization, security, and efficiency or speed, whatever you call it. There are, we've seen it in the context of L1s when you look at like Ethereum, Solana, you know, et cetera, and you're like, oh, why would I pick one chain over the other? The same actually applies for companies. Like, you know, you can be maximum like sort of decentralized kind of whatever, and then you would still not have the traction that you need, because the user experience is not to a level where a team is like constantly shipping, because it's like, oh, you have to have a community vote, then every person like decides what needs to go in there and like what gets shipped. At the end of the day, YC says, and like most founders would agree, you have to build something that people want to use, or make something useful. I didn't do YC, so, but yeah.
So how would you integrate NFTs into that line?
Yeah, so I think it's like an added layer of monetization, right? So that's the way I look at it. For me, social tokens is the overarching, like, you know, component, and NFTs are an enabler, or like I look at it in the context of helping with crowdfunding, reputation points, these kind of things. I don't look at it as the thing that would be used to kind of pay for, you know, day-to-day things. In the context of how we're integrating it in our product, it's basically like you as a creator, if you want to issue your photos not just on a centralized database and you want to do it as an NFT instead, which is what Instagram is now enabling, you can kind of do that, right? And you can have it on chain, you can own the IP truly, like, it's recorded for everyone to see, etc. If that's important to you and if you think you can make money from that, then go for it, right? You've seen Reddit recently create 3 million wallets out of thin air, basically. And they made something in the ballpark of $2.5 million in the span of like a few weeks, literally by selling avatars. So I think imagine if like, a musician, an artist, all these people could just do that based on their PFPs and other things, yeah.
I think what it gives is it gives increased access, doesn't it? It's the exposure that comes with a creative DAO and NFTs that those NFTs allow, is that exposure to people where these creatives can come together and help each other in this community that is still fairly new, actually. There's loads of people, as Joel alluded to, in the world that just don't know this space exists, wouldn't even know about this event. And what these creator DAOs do is allow that exposure, and that is really powerful to happen.
I find it interesting how we're still talking about NFT and NFT utility, while it's a bit like back in the day in Web 2, how we talked about MP3 music and MP3 player, and at some point we just called it music. So I think at some point we will just call it picture, video, music, and ticket instead of, NFT ticketing. It's just the hype of it being new. And once that is formally integrated, and once we also found a way to make it easy to access this for non-Web3 people, or non-coiners, how I heard somebody call them lately, then we're going to have this wide adaptation of NFTs, and then I think creator DAOs actually will be able to use the technology of NFTs to actually scale to success, because right now it is still in the bubble, it is still small, and only once we find a way to make all of this accessible to mainstream, as you said, I think as you guys are doing it, you give artists the chance to do Web3 stuff without needing to know how to do Web3 stuff. And if we get there, then I think we can scale up to a level that actually is becoming interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think I completely agree. I think that it's extremely important to onboard the people that don't have any experience in the space in order to come within these communities and actually check it out, because in the traditional world, if you have a Twitter and you don't like what Twitter is doing, the only option that you have is to stop using Twitter and go to another social media. Within a DAO, what you can do is actually participate in the process. Your conversation can be heard, and you can actually get a group of people in order to change it. There are so many DAOs that were started by founders or people that were leading it that are just gone from the project, and it's being ran by the community completely. And I think that that's the main objective and the advantage that this technology has.
Yeah, I completely agree. But sometimes, I think to myself, like, what the hell is the need for like a DAO to do all of this? Like, why don't you it's basically a community formation kind of tool, right? And we found a fancy way to put it under one umbrella and like do it in a very cool manner. Like, hey, come, let's build cool shit together. That's what a DAO is, right? And I don't think it's necessarily going to come under that umbrella or it's going to stay under that branding forever. Like, we might be looking back at this talk like 5-10 years down the line, and the word DAO might not exist, like you said. It's just like a way for communities to congregate and like do cool things together. Right now, it's under like some weird gray legal area, and like it might either get like completely axed, or like it could just become a legal entity type of its own. But realistically speaking, we were speaking a lot about like 0% royalties on NFTs and things like this. And I think you do need like, real world jurisdiction, like outside of virtual world, kind of like reconfirming the things that are being done on chain, right? So it's not just like, it's in the smart contract. Like, that doesn't work. Like, if you're in like, India and you're saying like, okay, the smart contract says I should get X amount, and then like, but actually, nowhere in the legal sense do I need to actually provide that, I probably won't provide that. So I think it's kind of just like trying to take away like all the there needs to be another startup in the space, I feel like, that does all the unsexy things, right? We're talking about Deal, for instance. Let's say like how you hiring someone from anywhere in the world has now become somehow accessible. It's not Web3 that did that. Let's not kid ourselves. It was very much the hard work of a team that went to individual governments all around the world and went like, hey, we want to form an exclusive agreement with you where we can effectively have someone like onboarded into the system of a government's like, taxation process and like things like that in a very streamlined manner, and like get it done under the right channels. I feel like NFTs have got all of the things like down on the digital front, but like in terms of the real world context and like being able to socially and legally enforce them, we're still getting there.
I actually think that DAO and the way DAO is organized will take over a lot of management and a lot of big corporation and boring management. We've seen that with startups in like the 2000 to 2010 area. Everybody was like, oh, they don't work enough, they don't get shit done. And nowadays, if you do Agile, if you do Scrum, if you do Spotify method, every big corporation tries to integrate you at least in one department, because we have seen that this way of working and considering the human beyond just their pure work effort actually is more efficient and gets people more involved and gets things done quicker. And I think DAOs are like ×2, like it's a level up. We're not only integrating people better, we're also making sure that those people who know the best will make the right decision, which isn't always the C-level suite because they don't have the right context. So I think in 5 to 10 years, a lot of DAO structure, a lot of also NFT DAO structure will find some way to be Web2 sexy and integrated into management. And NFTs will be a part of that.
No, I completely agree. I mean, seeing how this space works and how fast everything changed, I think that in 5 to 10 years, we'll probably have another array of tools that we're going to be able to use in order to build these communities and these companies, you know. But I completely agree with what you guys were saying, you know. Companies need to understand that you can be efficient while working in a decentralized manner, you know. You don't always need to have a head. But also, it's not only all about decentralization. Us, when we are starting the project, we're 9 governors that actually need to make some decisions in order to make stuff happen. And then obviously we get feedback from the community and listen to that. But it's not always the solution to be fully decentralized. You need to have someone that is actually on the ground getting shit done, or else it simply doesn't happen. You just have that person that represents everybody else, kind of. And it's also important to keep those governors in rotation so people don't get too comfortable at the level of power.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting because what you find at the bigger NFT companies is this kind of operations style department that actually then keeps the cog turning. You know, it isn't just about the creator aspect. That's how they then revolutionize, as Joel mentioned. You need this, you know, part of the role I do actually in HR, you know, it's fairly unknown. There's not many people in HR and Web3. It's kind of a really corporate style environment, so it's interesting trying to navigate the space, and it's very much still evolving. But I think that's what these companies need to bring in, is specialists, you know, in different areas, whether that's legal, finance, ops, HR, and then they can adapt and evolve.
Yeah, I think just in general, being able to do the things that are like, you know, not so cool or whatever is something that Web3 companies need to do more of. Otherwise, as soon as the VC money in this space goes out, we're going to see a lot of this stuff like go to shit. Like, we'll see how many, like, you know, governors we need to make decisions basically when there's no money in the bank. You have to get stuff done. You're going to do it now. You're going to do it with the people in the room. And that's just like what it is.
There will be a lot of trial and error, I think,
yeah.
and that will result in great new insights and an improved way, but that also means a certain percentage needs to die and fail and burn to the ground. That's how you make process. And then we're perfectly on time.
Right.
Finished.
Yeah, guys, there's like a red thing over here that says 40 seconds, so we're gonna, do we wanna, oh. You can do whatever you want. Damn.
The last 30 seconds.
Should we do like a TikTok or something?
A TikTok.
Do you want to?
Not
Run
yet.
it. Let's do it.
This is the creator segment, I don't know.
Make a selfie. I don't know.
Can you dance, bro? Like, fair enough.
Which one are you going to? All of them, wonderful.
That's
I'll hope to see you at mine then as well.
Oh, yeah. You're having an after. Where's my invite, dude? Like,
You can come. W3WC.
I don't like pity invites.
Everyone
No, I
connect
like
with Janine.
I'll send the invite around. 2, 1.
There we go.
Thank you.
Well done, really well done.